So, hello everyone. We're here for the panel on Future in XR. And I have the pleasure to be joined by Brian, who just gave a talk on Project North Star, getting started with the open source augmented reality. Ellen, who does sports fan management, fan engagement and activation using augmented reality. Sean, who just gave a talk on building our XR future with Builder. Alex, who is going to give a talk on 5G plus 4D equals new realities. Paige, who will give a talk on how to demo in Facebook Horizon. And Deirdre, who's giving a talk on acting in VR. Welcome, everyone.
Hello, hi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's assume that people haven't read the schedule and don't really know, even though from the titles of the talks that I just gave, know who you are and your background. So it would be great to do a really short introductory round so we have an idea of where people are coming from, what their background is, and where we then see the perspective on the future. So I have this order, which I don't know if it's alphabetic or where it comes from, but let's start with Brian.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Brian. I have a background in architecture and environmental design for buildings, not for computer chips. I have been working on Project North Star, which is this guy right here, for about 2 years now in my spare time. So I do everything from Unreal Engine development to 3D printing and headset construction. So.
Cool. Alan.
Yes, I am Alan Silverstein, CEO of Imagine AR, and we are a augmented reality platform primarily focused on sports, entertainment, and media around the world, with offices in Canada. We're actually a public company in Canada, which is rare to actually have an AR public company. But we have offices in the United States as well as UK, open up Dubai. So we focus on engagement and activation, specifically in those areas.
And Sean?
Yeah, so I am Sean Ong. I have founded a company called Maneuver Entertainment to do like VR arcade related things, and also a company called Inflection Point, which develops Builder, which my previous talk was on. That's an XR app creation platform. And then founder of Ong Innovations, which is a XR app development studio to create custom applications. And just a quick note on kind of a little prediction for the future of XR is I'm excited for when VR and AR devices converge into a single device that's no bigger than a pair of glasses might be today. And that's going to be when things get very interesting and exciting.
And Alex.
Hi, I am the CEO of Montech Labs. This is our second startup. Our first startup was Underminer Studios, where we focused on XR creation across industries. It was all custom service work, and that led to product development of what is Montech Labs, where we're actually doing content creation at scale, everything from volumetric video to photogrammetry and scan data. We intake all that raw data and output all that wonderful content for device spec. So whether it's for VR or other, and we are really excited to see where the future takes us.
Cool. And Paige?
Thank you. My name is Paige Dansinger. I'm the founding director of Better World Museum, as well as the new Horizon Art Museum in Facebook Horizon. And I've been drawing with people around the world in real life and in VR for so many years that I'm really excited to now work with this new social tool. We use the museum in social VR as a platform for women, diverse, and teen leadership roles.
Cool. And last but not least, Deirdre.
Hi there, I'm Deirdre Lyons. Nice to meet everyone. This is so exciting to be here with all these amazing people who are doing such wonderful work in VR, which is how I feel is a totally exciting place to be. I'm a VR actress. I've done The Under Presents Tempest, Finding Pandora X, which was in the Venice Film Festival. That one won Best Immersive Experience. The Under Presents just won the VR Awards for Best Experience of the Year. And The Tempest is currently in Raindance, and you can see it through November 15th. And then I also started doing a little producing in VR of live theater as well. So that's my background. Thank you.
So let's get started with one question that, and also there's people tuning in from Miami and from all over the world. Most of them didn't write yet where they're coming from, but someone wrote from Miami. I have no idea what time it is there. I didn't check. Here it's 1 at night. So from all your different backgrounds, you have producing something in VR can be quite challenging. And where do you see from your perspective and your content creation and work that you do, where do you see the challenges for that? And whoever wants to go first, just, I don't know, give me a sign or just go and we'll figure this out. Brian.
Sure. So I think one of the interesting things we've seen just over the past few years in general is the rise of user-created content, specifically with apps like Snapchat, Instagram with the face filters and everything. I think those kind of apps are going to reduce the barrier to entry for content creation in XR, especially when it comes to 3D effects and things like that. You know, with LiDAR scanning, we'll be able to scan like just objects around you rather than having to painstakingly recreate them in the computer. So I think the time that it's going to take to create usable assets for these kind of experiences is going to decrease quite a bit. But right now, creating like assets that'll run performantly on, say, like an Oculus Quest is definitely a challenge.
I agree with everything Brian just said. That's actually where Mod hopes to be a proponent for the industry to really bring down those barriers for content creation. So we actually don't offer capture as a service. We think that the capture should be in the hands of the creators. We offer processing as a service. And so our goal is to really enable others to do that wonderful creative bit and not have to mess with like the overly technical stuff that makes it really hard to get onto a device like into a VR headset. We do optimization, we do imagery cleanup, and all kinds of other stuff. And so we see that, you know, the opportunity for, you know, Mandalorian in your backyard, if you will, those streamers, those, you know, at-home content creators are going to start really moving into the market space, and it's not going to be just a professional arena anymore.
I believe I support these really strong leads that Alex and Brian have shared. And I want to support that by saying that the most accessible these tools can be, as free as many times that we can create these platforms for more mentorship and education opportunities and free leadership roles for people who are passionate about these technologies, especially in young, diverse people, that we can push the boundaries in more equitable ways. And that has to go along together with the way the future of this technology and accessibility can and should be. It really puts it right into the hands of the people.
Deirdre, how is that for actors and actresses that you know in the realm? Like, you have now VR experience quite a lot. How is that for other people, and how are they creating content in VR?
There's actually not a lot of live stuff happening currently. It's sort of coming up in fits and starts, but it's growing. And I think the pandemic has actually accelerated interest and the growth of the medium. And I do believe that people, once they realize how easy it is, it's actually not as hard as people think, that there'll be an explosion of creativity of live productions and such.
And Ellen.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the VR side, so I come from the AR side. But Paige said something I think is important and is a key. We actually took our platform. It's called ImagineARstudio.com, and we made it free. And because of pandemic, so anyone in the world right now create an AR experience, learn how to do it, where they could post up 3D models, whether it's from Sketchfab, TurboSquid, or their own MP4, JPEG, PNG, anything they want. Load it up and create an AR activation right now in 60 seconds anywhere in the world, either visual markers or locations. So I agree that it should be something that to help grow the industry, the estimates are out there, and give people the opportunity to create their own content and enjoy it and explode on the creativity. So we did that as a big decision earlier this year. We pulled out all the credit card processing and we made ImagineARstudio.com for free. You use our ImagineAR mobile app and you can enjoy your heart's content. We actually got selected by the University of Pittsburgh MBA program. We're actually working with them to teach MBA students how to use AR to help businesses promote themselves and to build revenue opportunities. And I think this is the way the industry should go, and we wholeheartedly support it as well.
Cool. I see nods, so all in agreement. So that's cool. And I'm just going to take the first question that comes from the audience, and they wrote me that they're coming from all over the world. So Cornwall, UK, someone from Indonesia, California, and so someone from Indonesia actually. Adityo has a question. What do you all think about the growth of XR in the past, this past year? And where do you see it in the next 5 years? So we're already talking about, okay, what's the outlook there? And Sean, you wanted to take that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I both feel that it's gone very slow, but also very fast at the same time. When you're in the middle of it, things can't come fast enough. You always want the next headset. You always want the next device. But when I look back, it's 2020, 5 years ago was 2015. The HoloLens was announced, but it wasn't yet released. It wasn't released until 2016. ARKit and ARCore did not exist. Can you imagine? Just 5 years ago, ARKit and ARCore did not exist, right? You're looking at Oculus Quest, Oculus Quest 2. We got the HoloLens 2 that's out now. Magic Leap came. So when you look back over the last 5 years, you're like, whoa, actually, there was quite an explosion, even though when you're in it, it's so hard to be patient.
It's actually interesting that the pace of the VR sort of uptake is actually faster than the uptake of the mobile revolution, which for those of us that were around when cell phones actually really became a thing, it's kind of a weird, like mind-blowing, moment where you're like, oh, really? On that exact note, I love the innovation, and I'm also concerned by the mass innovation because I think it's confusing for consumers. I think that the amount of headsets that have come out makes it a little hard for your lay person to understand, like what is the best use case? Why would I pay more or less? Why should I choose this one over that one? But I will say that I think that we're making amazing strides, and I love, of course, that everything is now cordless, and we're really moving in the direction of more horsepower, less computer on your face, and that's a wonderful trend.
I think I just want to jump in on XR, and I think that's a fair point, Alice. But in every industry, in every technology, you say revolution, you have lots come out, everyone heads in directions, then you got the fall away, and then you ultimately go forward. When I look at AR, which is mobile, when I speak to a lot of people out there, everyone is counting on Apple with the Apple glasses. They think that's going to be the tipping point where when that comes out. And I've explained to a lot of organizations, said that's a $400 or $500 piece of hardware. Outside of the Brooklyn hipsters in Silicon Valley, you're not going to have that mass adoption so quickly while everyone's with their phones as well. So it's going to take time. But I believe the Apple glasses, which is going to be huge marketing tethered to the phone, will have a significant impact, certainly in the world of what we see as AR and extended reality in that sense. And I think that's going to be major impact. Although there's small vendors like InReal that's making some moves and other ones, I think you're going to see that. So the next 5 years, I'm surprised no one came up yet. I was waiting for Brian up there to say, Minority Report, we'll be in the Minority Report in 5 years. And, I hear that in all the demos, but I think we are getting there where personalization of advertising and messaging through the phone, through the glasses, is what's going to become standard in the next, say, 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and just to sort of add on to that, right? When you get into this level of personalization, like the amount of data these devices are going to be able to collect on you is a real problem that needs to be solved before, we get mass adoption, right? Like, what's going to happen when, the Apple glasses do come out and they're world changing and they cost $500 and an iPhone, which is now selling for like $1,000, right? Like, if it requires $1,500 to get into the AR XR ecosystem or into this, company segmented realities, like, at what point does that start to become sort of the next social rift, right? Like, if people, like right now, we're seeing that sort of with social media where people are seeing different things based on what zip code they're in. But like, what's it going to get to the point when we're all seeing different things, right? So, like,
that's going to happen. We've had this discussion, walking down Times Square, and Deidre's going to see something, Paige is going to see something, Brian, Sean, Alex, we're all going to see something different, yet we're all walking down Times Square. And if you think about it, that's where it's going to go. And the privacy laws, you look what California just did, right, in related to their privacy, and we're updating our terms of services. And I got to tell you, the cost of having terms of service of privacy, addressing GDPR, California, and all the other, they're at least trying to get ahead of it. But I think you bring up a fair point that we're all going to be in the same space, but if we're using the extended reality, we're all going to see different things that are personalized to our experiences, our environment, who we are, and it's pretty amazing what's going to be coming and the issues that go along with that. That's absolutely true.
I think that really ties back to, again, the accessibility and making sure that there's a lower or lack of or zero biases or inherent supremacy built into programs, as well as I just feel as though not just glasses, but all more interfaces, our buildings, our clothing, our homes, that soft architecture, there'll be more responsive opportunities because of 5G, and our mobile experience won't just have to be dependent on glasses or a watch or a mobile. They'll be integrated throughout us and the way we live in our built and natural environments. And I think that creative design and ethical standards can really help put all those ingredients together to make a better world. These are opportunities for climate, corruption, colonization, and all kinds of issues that people can do with this great technology. So I think that with smart teams, that our outcomes can be better and better.
Certainly, I do think that we will have a better world from this if we demand it, right? If we insist upon making these things be not completely integrated in our lives, that it overtakes our privacy. I did hear somebody talking about XR and AR in a way that I thought was pretty clever. And he was actually quoting somebody else, and I'm not going to try to quote who they were, but it said that the AR and the glasses would be very similar to having your mobile phone, and having a VR headset would be very similar to having a computer in your house. You have it accessible and it's there, but the glasses will probably be something that you carry around all the time, like your phone, which I thought, oh, that sounds like it could very well be what happens in 5 years. And what I would also like to see is what Alex was saying, is better computing power, less latency. That the amount of computing power just is allowing you to see more of the world's in VR. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see one trend that we're already starting to see now with the, like Alex was mentioning, with the explosion of so many devices, it's making it really confusing for developers to try and create cross-platform applications. But now we're also starting to see the industry fighting back against that by coming out with stuff like OpenXR. You know, you've seen platforms like Unity coming out with their XR SDK that's supposed to try and be more cross-platform friendly. You know, Microsoft's MRTK has a huge emphasis on trying to be more cross-platform friendly. You've got the XRTK doing the same thing. So yeah, there's this. I think a lot of developers recognize that we're only at the beginning of the explosion of devices, and if we don't solve the standardization problem right now, it's going to get really messy really fast. So yeah, I see a few promising standards starting to emerge, and I think we can all definitely get behind some of those.
Yeah, especially with OpenXR, like Unreal Engine is pivoting to target directly to the OpenXR API. So any project you make in Unreal targeting OpenXR will just work on anything that supports it, which is pretty great. We've been doing a lot of work on Project North Star to go ahead and support OpenXR, and it's actually one of the first headsets to actually run on Linux, which is pretty cool. So there's definitely a lot of work on standardization like that, for sure.
Yeah, there's room for standardization around that equality and, you know, the considerations for how we're being represented ourselves within these experiences, how we choose to be represented, and also just doing away with a lot of those old school thinking patterns that are really prevalent in video games, are really prevalent in XR experiences that you know, marginalize people. We are active in a trade organization right now where I'm actually heading up a diversity and inclusion initiative to create some standards for XR. And we are close to wrapping standards for XR in regard to limited mobility. And so I think it's really important to like take an active role in creating these standards and making sure that people have educational opportunities to access, you know, information that is broadly applicable.
Is there any comment from anyone else on?
I guess sorry. So sort of just to add on to that, like it's really interesting. Like I've seen so much talk about the metaverse, right? Like, oh, it's going to be this great thing. We're going to have this digital city. There's going to be flying Pac-Mans. It's going to be awesome. And, you know, I like think, and I'm like, you know, my city could really use a train. Can we just have a train, please? Like, that'd be great. You know, I'm all for the metaverse train, but it's like at the same time, you know, you see the amount of money and resources going into XR, and you're like, you know, what if we didn't invest, you know, billions and billions of dollars into a single display technology, where instead maybe that could be invested into other communities and things. So it's really interesting seeing the amount of excitement, and like there was definitely like an early investor uptick in the XR industry itself. But it's like, you know, right now, like how as an industry can we use the money that's being driven into it for better social change?
Yeah, that's really interesting, you know, and it makes me wonder kind of what's going to happen with this COVID thing, right? I mean, I think all of us really, really, really want COVID to be done, but that doesn't seem to be happening as fast as we want it to, right? So it makes me start to wonder, like, what kind of infrastructure changes is COVID going to force upon us, and what role does XR have in that, right? Maybe, for example, there's going to be this mass migration of people doing way more of these types of virtual conferences that we're all part of right now. And even ones that move increasingly to XR, you know, even though it's not what we all want to do, but, you know, we don't get to make the COVID laws, or we don't get to just eliminate that overnight, right? I mean, I'm really hoping it does go away, but I'm also wondering, like, since we're talking about the future of XR in the next 5 to 10 years, yeah, I'd love to hear even from some of you guys what your predictions are on, if COVID doesn't go away, how's that going to change our world, and how's that going to impact XR?
I've actually wanted to do this for a really long time, not have a pandemic, but bring museums and climate discussion into and education, social art education and entrepreneurship into VR. And I've been kind of frustrated that it hasn't happened sooner and has taken this. But I will tell you that Better World Museum has done a lot on just about nothing. There are ways that you can use existing technology to create strong and resilient individuals, groups, and communities already. And I've been doing it for a long time as a bootstrapping person in the middle of nowhere in Minneapolis. And you really don't need a giant studio. I've had a giant studio. Better World Museum was a brick and mortar space with 8,000 square feet for 5 years in the center of the city. And I shut that down because truly all I do need is this. Like, this isn't a session about me.
No, I agree with you though. It's
so many ways that we can use technology. We can all offer examples.
It's a conservation of resources, right? And if you don't need to spend the gas and the rent and the this and the that to get people there, and it makes it that much more accessible. I mean, we're seeing that with conferences. We're seeing that with educational opportunities, all of the virtual tours that came out, like en masse for free for students, at the beginning of the pandemic, all the other virtual resources that were just, handed out. And I was like, this is amazing. What a fantastic time. Virtual learning is not necessarily for everyone, but at least you have a lot of a lot of resources that are out there. And I think the same thing goes for, really preserving and creating opportunity. Like, I don't know that I would necessarily ever get to visit Egypt, right? Mm-hmm. But I would love to be able to see some of the antiquities that are kept there. And so I love this idea of, a white box museum and being able to actually, visit and have access to things that are not really capable. I'm not really capable of doing in real life. And that just extends to many kinds of experiences. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were talking about accessibility, people wanting to go to the theater who are not mobile or in some way unable to get there because of different reasons. That having theater and art and all of that stuff available in a headset really opens up the world to people who have disabilities or other issues that keep them from being able to go to these places. So it is an exciting tool to use as we go along and figure out how to use it, because it is still so new, not to many of us, but to most of the world.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest demos I've seen in terms of accessibility, I think it was at the first MIT Reality Hack, where a group took the Microsoft accessible controller and hooked it up to a HoloLens for people who couldn't use like hand input or gesture input or eye tracking. And they took this device that was like built for people to play games on it, right? To play games on an Xbox. And we're like, hey, we can take this input and connect it directly to XR. And then from that, we saw Microsoft actually build out infrastructure to actually make that a thing that's actually like supported. So I think like you mentioned earlier, like demanding that this industry supports people and makes itself accessible is really important. And it's not going to happen unless the people who are stakeholders in the industry actually demand it.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to work on some projects that are a little less on the entertainment side and a little bit more on the medical side specifically. One of our projects, we did a virtual reality driving simulation for motorized wheelchairs. And so the process to actually get approved for a motorized wheelchair is not only is it short as far as the amount of hours that you actually get to train in a physical chair, but it's also a little dangerous because the chairs are very heavy, they're very expensive. Driving something that is directional and acceleration at the same time is challenging to learn. And that is actually deployed in several hundred different clinics now. And it's tools like that that really change the game for people, for professionals, that you can't extend a person unless you add in an element of technology. A single person just can't stretch that far. And so with this tool, a lot more people are able to actually get through the process and able to train. And so more of them are able to get certified to receive a chair through their insurance, which is a quality of life issue ultimately. And so there's just a massive opportunity for improvement in so many areas, in medical and business applications. I mean, we've done data visualization for, KPMG. We've done just a multitude of things that are just really impactful on, your business presence as well.
What are the other things where you and your background have created a huge impact, where you felt like you either connected with a user or an audience or something where the thing that you made had really an impact? Can you share some examples there, maybe? And because you have all different applications.
Right. So I guess from the 3D print and build your own headset side of things, like seeing people like tweet me and be like, hey, I built my headset. Thanks so much for like putting all the documentation together or showing me how to fix that problem. Like what I find is so lacking is like this technology, like even in phones, headsets and everything is so vital for our everyday lives, and no one knows how to fix it, right? If you break your phone, what do you do, right? Like it's not really like taught to you how to fix it. You've got to like either go find like a YouTube video or take it to some guy at the mall and be like, hey man, can you fix my phone? And they'll be like, pay money. It's like these technologies are so vital, and people don't understand how they're like, no one's teaching you how they work or how they're built. And for me to be able to see people like learn that something at least about the inner workings of some of this technology has been really cool.
We had the opportunity to work with a group that focused on servicing the underprivileged for STEM, and they work with the MBA. So we donated to them a number of things, and one of it was create AR scavenger hunts. So they would get phones and then allow these young people to get into gymnasiums or other public areas and then teach them about augmented reality, drones, and other technology. So we created for them like the dinosaur one, and then we did one for fish or other. It was great to see and rewarding where you're exposing this young audience who never had any exposure whatsoever, certainly to STEM or augmented reality, to see it through their phones. It wasn't the Pokemon Go, but something more educational. And I think that was something certainly from Imagine AR standpoint we did. And lastly, the other thing that had huge impact, but also was semi-fun, was the Broward Education Foundation, which was set up for the Parkland shooting victims in Florida. They contacted us to do something special for the graduation students this year. So they wanted to create some unique, memorable experience. So we created the first ever augmented reality graduation. So we green screened Superintendent Bob Runcie in a studio, and then we dropped them into every house in Broward County, full cap and gown, and through your phone, you could see him standing there and handing you the diploma, which was pretty amazing. And not only that one, the big one that got attention of all the media, and again, it was the feel good that we donated, was we got Flo Rida, the musician who everyone might know, to do a 15-second TikTok dance with himself, with his own music, and we dropped that into everyone's house as well. And that went pretty big and pretty exciting to get covered. So like, as Brian said, it's nice, and as Alex said, and Paige, to help people and give back. That was probably one that will go down for us for quite a while, to provide the first ever AR graduation TikTok for people that had a horrible situation, have come through it in a positive, and to give them something they couldn't have done anywhere else. And it's something that you really feel good about and see the future of what we could do with it as we continue in this industry.
That's really lovely. Thank you. I know graduates of that class, and I'm proud that you to know that I'm so proud to know you. Thank you.
You're too kind, but
That's so awesome.
It's the Education Foundation. If anyone who's looking,
really nice.
Look up Flo Rida with AR, and you'll see him dancing, and you'll see it's a great program, and we'd love to be part of it, and we're looking forward to working with them again in the future.
Well, I know those kids must have loved it.
It was very, very good time.
Something impactful that I did, the first thing I ever did when I the first thing I ever drew on an Oculus. I drew a flower and I tweeted online. I put it online with a link inviting anyone in the world to add and remix it. And someone said to me, "Oh, you did the dumbest thing. You just opened yourself up to, quote, the worst of the internet." Someone from New York, someone from London, someone from Germany, someone from Ireland, someone from around the whole entire world drew on it. And now over 6,000 people have drawn in it. And I have taken the program to China and Singapore and Cambodia and Seattle and New York and Miami and all around the world. And it's created real life relationships and leadership roles and jobs that people ended up making a lot of money and sustainable income. So it grew and it grew and it grew. It was also part of an MIT reality hack this last January, right before COVID, and I drew dandelions with all the members there in VR, and then we created AR flower seeds for these wild edible urban plants. And when they scanned the flower seeds, we used Vuforia and Unity, and when they scanned it with their phones, then their drawings of the wild dandelion patch would come up, and everyone saw their works together, and it was, really unifying. So very community making.
Oh, that's beautiful. That sounds amazing. And community. I could offer the Underpresents as an experience in community. When COVID hit, it was the place that people would go to be with other people, and a whole community grew on Discord. One of the favorite things that people like to do in the Underpresents is hug. So everyone is very friendly and cooperative, and then you get a hug. And even though it's not real, because, if you touch an avatar, your hands just go straight through. But if you hug somebody as an avatar, and you're an avatar and they're an avatar, and you're hugging them, part of your mind just sort of provides that piece of rememory of what that was like. And it helps get through these hard times.
Very much so.
Yeah, for us, one of the most meaningful things that we did that has just kind of extended into a ton of things is we created our own virtual reality platform, and for therapy. So the goal at the time, this was 4 years ago, no one was doing VR therapy. That was not a thing. But we were young and early into entrepreneurship, and it inspired a lot of things, both internally, where we created this IP. It was levelized, gamified play. The first level was very cartoony, and then it progressed through realism each level. And so the fifth level was photorealistic assets. So photogrammetry, volumetric video. And really the goal was to take the user, through this process at their own self-led pace. And the fifth level would be that re-entry back into, the real world. And then they could take all those learnings, into real life, because, VR is a really powerful tool to retrain your brain. And that is actually what inspired the way that we created the wheelchair project itself. And it is what inspired us to create the platform that's ModTech Labs. And really we were envisioning, that content creation at scale for that fifth level, the photorealism. There were no tools out there that were available widely for a startup, definitely not. And that really carried through to us being able to make these really wonderful tools that are out there in the world that we want to help other people. And our dream is no longer to create that platform. There are a lot of other people doing wonderful things in that space, but we want to enable others to bring that realism to their own work.
Yeah, on my side, some of the most fulfilling things that I've worked on is kind of multifaceted. They are through fulfilling some client contracts, as Paige was mentioning, it does provide jobs to a lot of people. And because we're still so early in the XR industry, a lot of the jobs that I provided has been training up new people from the ground up. It's there's a lot of that still needed. So that includes publishing a lot of tutorials, a lot of tutorial videos. I even wrote a book on HoloLens development. Just seeing that there's still a lot for people to learn, and then being able to kind of crack open that there's a lot of people who want to have XR apps created, but they don't really know how to go about doing it, or they don't know where's the starting point. So kind of being in the industry, at that intersection where we can help make those a reality. Some of the projects that I've worked on have been super fascinating training projects for some technical schools in China. We've done a sweeping truck training simulator. So they actually see kind of a hologram of a sweeping truck, and it goes through this entire course where students go and they can actually see the animations of how to assemble and disassemble and maintain these things, and everything from that all the way up to really complex equipment like atomic absorption spectrometers, and to hear about some of the impact of how students, they learn way better with that kind of 3D training versus just trying to watch videos or go through it in a textbook, or all of the really dangerous training that you hear a lot of people getting hurt when they're actually on the ground as an apprentice trying to learn some of these heavy machineries or working with these really dangerous pieces of equipment. Having a hologram of that, and being able to really get lots of practice with the hologram before going to the real thing, is helping a lot to kind of reduce danger and increase efficiency, decrease costs. So yeah, just seeing a lot of those kinds of opportunities kind of flourish over the last few years, and seeing those types of opportunities getting realized, and then training up the people to be able to fulfill those opportunities. I think it's really exciting to be part of the growth of the XR industry, since it is so young right now, and I'm definitely excited to see it continue growing and see a lot more people being able to be in this industry as a result of that.
So just a quick announcement for any audience out there. You have a couple of more minutes to ask questions. Use that time, because you will never get these people together and be able to answer your questions. But we'll just continue, and if I see anything, so there's actually quite a couple of comments on the different projects, and that it's super great with the impact on with immersion, and also the projects that you mentioned. So there's a couple of things there, but I didn't interrupt now, and just let it run. Where do you see in terms of, let's say, all of the projects and devices, they have some kind of interaction with humans, and also then in a VR space, where do you see like challenges or trends or even opportunities in your fields, because it's different applications that you're coming from? I'm not sure if that's a clear question, but let's see if someone could like figure out something with that.
So opportunities, look for opportunities that feel uncomfortable, I would say. Once I had this museum party in VR, and I had worked really hard on getting everyone there, and it was just going great. And then these 3 15 and 13-year-olds came, and they were disruptive, and they were full of energy, and they were 13 and 15, and by the end of the night, they had fallen totally in love with the idea of people getting together and creating art together, that they offered to build a museum for me inside a rec room. That museum that they spent a few days building together changed their lives in the middle of COVID. It gave them confidence. It gave them life and connection and confidence and just so much. Allow yourself to to do things that feel uncomfortable, I would say, is in order to make that XR, something more meaningful.
It's actually not as hard as it seems. It's just not that many people are doing it. So it's for example, like with theater, it's like you just switch out a Unity builder for your set builder and an avatar builder for your costume designer, and then it's just like a play. That there's just a lack of knowledge of it. It seems so inaccessible, but it's not. It's really a lot more accessible than it seems. And it's just a matter of getting out there and trying. Like Sean was saying, I've been training people from the ground up because there's not that many people doing these things out there, but it's not as hard as it seems because it's just something we haven't done before.
And I would say, like, to add to that, the best way to learn is really by finding a community of other people that want to learn the same thing as you. So, like, Discord communities are great for this. Project North Star Discord, join it. It's fun. But, having like a community where I can just like ping someone from Australia and be like, hey, I like that thing you made. How'd you make it? Is really, really cool. So taking advantage of like the hyper connectivity of the world is definitely something that is an opportunity that I don't think enough people take advantage of.
And everybody seems to be so much more accessible in this because there's not as many people doing it. So the gatekeepers aren't there. You can just reach out to somebody who's doing amazing stuff that you've never met before, and they're like, hey, thanks for emailing, thanks for contacting. Yes, how are you? Let's have a virtual coffee. Let's talk. It's really exciting because it's so accessible.
We have two questions or one bigger question from the audience, and I'll just show that and read that. So Charlton is asking, are you concerned about centralization of hardware and walled gardens of software in pass-through XR? And extending on that, so I'm not sure if I can post, no, I can only post one. And to extend on that question, if so, what do you think we can do to challenge that future? So, anyone want to take that question?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing, like, in terms of just hardware, Apple had a huge announcement this week with their new system on a chips for Macs, right? They've got these new 10-watt CPUs that are beating out like Intel's biggest laptop chips, right? Which is insane, right? You've got this tiny little 10-watt chip in a MacBook Air that's like outperforming a chip that like another billion-dollar company has made. So I think we're going to start to see a lot of specialized chips specifically for like figuring out where the headset is in a room or figuring out like how to 3D visualize a room, right? We're going to see like these specialized computer chips that aren't just CPUs, but are like machine learning based ASICs or like specifically designed chips for a certain purpose. So companies like Apple that have sort of started to bring all of this in-house are going to start to have a really, really big advantage in terms of hardware and being able to make miniaturize hardware like we've seen them do with AirPods, like make things so small and so, generally unfixable for regular people that it's going to be harder and harder to compete. Same with companies like Facebook that are selling the Quest for less than it actually costs to manufacture. So how is that going to come in when other companies want to, have to sell their headset for $600, but the Quest has more features, right? So I think it's going to be, it's a real challenge to try and stand up to these companies. And I think a big problem with that is that we're sort of consistently needing to see year over year growth, right? Like even a company like Apple, that's one of the richest companies in the world, is expected to see growth next year. And if they don't, people are going to be like, oh no, Apple's dead, even though they still made billions and billions and billions of dollars. So, it's not only how do smaller companies compete with these larger mega corporations, it's also how can we restructure the goals and success points of these companies. It should totally be sustainable to have a mid-level company just do VR, sell a few 100,000 devices, make a profit, and that should be considered successful. But it's interesting how we're seeing the influx of the original like VR hype wave and VR cash influx affect different VR companies?
For augmented reality, there's two kind of standards out there, and there has been an attempt, like say from the software side, to have a shared environment, because you don't want to have a pair of Apple glasses on, and then you'll have an Android version, and you won't have accessibility to the same experiences. So Apple does have their standard. I know Kronos, which is an organization association out there, has supported their function of it. But you're seeing the movement to try and make it so everybody's close to the same page, but Apple still is separate. And that walled garden point is a fair point, because in the world of extended reality, there's things called spatial anchors, where you can drop an experience at a specific location, which would be persistent there. So if I go by and I'm based on, say, an Android standard, and no matter what, if I have Android glasses, no matter the manufacturer, I will see and engage that spatial anchor because it's maintaining it through a certain file format that I could read. But Apple is going towards the applet, where it's more of a barcode applet kind of environment, which is not going to be, comparable and giving you the same access that you would in Android. So I think it's a fair point. And, to me, it goes back to the browser days. If the people who are a little bit older will remember, you had Netscape and you had AOL and you had browsers, and then ultimately you ended up getting Chrome. And that's what you're seeing is you have all these, I got Martin laughing on that one, is you have all these different environments, and it's going to come together. It's just going to have to go through a number of iterations. Obviously, money's going to have a big impact. And the tipping point, is it going to be Apple glasses? Is it another vendors? Is a certain application, not a gamification, but a retail environment that drives it? The ability to integrate 2D, 3D, that becomes the standard format that then all the major manufacturers, everyone cohesively works towards, that we all can engage, whether I have Apple, I have Android, whatever I have, I could see it and share it and build a community that way, rather than being defined that, well, if I have Apple glasses, I get Apple experiences. If I have Android, I'm going to get different experiences, and we can't cross over. And I think that is an issue now, and it's interesting to see how it will play out in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And just to add to that, about the centralization of hardware, I think a good example is, what Facebook is doing with the Quest, as Brian was mentioning. I think as developers, I think one way to combat that is to embrace what is happening in the industry with multi-platform stuff like OpenXR. Because if everybody is on one platform and the switching cost is way too high to develop your apps on multiple platforms, you'll be forced to develop your app only for that one platform, where somebody might get a huge cut, right? But, if there's a more open ecosystem and we're all supporting that open ecosystem, then yeah, you could have your app on, let's say, the Apple App Store or the Oculus Store, but you could also have it on another store where it might be less expensive because maybe there's a smaller, more fair cut, right? And I'm not really the person to speak to what's fair and what's not fair, but supporting a foundation that is inherently multi-platform, like OpenXR, will help to kind of level the playing field a little bit and help with competition and help not one manufacturer kind of emerge victorious, and it'll help kind of keep things much more balanced.
I agree on that. And I think the last thing that's important there is actually the hardware manufacturers to hopefully stop deprecating all of the old headsets, because that makes it really inaccessible. Then you can't access new stuff. Suddenly your hardware is outdated and you have to spend. And so we don't have that secondary market that we have with games, right? You can buy an old, PlayStation and stuff will still work. I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that. I think that'll also help the market massively.
So I need to wrap it up a little bit because there's the next session coming, and already the organizers went into our stream and were like, hey, are you having this under control? I'm like, yeah, I'm getting there. It was so lovely to talk to you, and I would like to extend this even longer, but then we get people too late to their sessions, and I also need to moderate the next one. I couldn't get to one of the questions there, but maybe we can take that to Discord. Thank you so much, and see you in the next talks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.